God's work, man. You doing okay today?
I'm doing actually fine, great. I, I'm kind of speechless. That you brought this up. I do a lot of this work out of conviction, and I think anyone that wants to do true journalism has to have that conviction and understand that it is not a job, it is a duty. And when you're there doing this work, you are trying to be the surrogate of the audience, try to bring them to the place that they're unable to reach, unable to view by themselves, to make their own judgment. And this is part of the frontline journalism that without we cannot actually have a news item that is truly vetted for reality. And it's so disheartening to see the how journalism currently, or mainstream journalism, has devolved into really just propaganda, and that society and community producers and citizen journalists have now had to fill this huge gap. Imagine if we didn't have all these thousands of Palestinians filming the reality for us, with the lack of journalists on the ground that are refusing to take the risk, Western journalists. What would this story have been of this genocide? So I see myself as doing what I'm supposed to do, so a citizen doesn't have to take that risk to to bring the reality on the ground. They're already Palestinian, Lebanese citizens, Syrian citizens are already dealing with so much to even just survive. And if me as a journalist don't do my duty of bringing this story, they will have to take the risk themselves, and that is not something that I expect from them.
I accept that. I totally accept it. But it's rare, is my point. And most people aren't putting their bodies on the line in order to get those stories out and allow people to see the reality that's taking place on the ground. That's why I take this kind of point of view of it is fully earned. I'm always impressed by, I don't know if you consider yourself a war correspondent, but Lord knows you put yourself in a line of fire when you go out there. Israel has shown all capacities of being willing to murder anybody, especially hunting down journalists, especially hunting down people, exposing what they've been doing. For God's sake, they murdered a guy in a hospital room that they had already injured, right? So, no, man, you do God's work.
We were just recording over yesterday a report that should come out, inshallah, tomorrow with a journalist here on the front lines. And it's a report about the attacks on journalists here in Lebanon. There's at least 11 media workers that have been martyred in Lebanon. We know of course, the big story is the 200 plus journalists in Gaza that have been killed. But this has been true here. And we were going into the frontline positions right under Israeli bases, overlooking us across the whole border yesterday, recording this documentary. And, we were followed as we were filming this documentary with other journalists about the attacks of journalists multiple times by drones. And we were in their sniper sights. We were just under bases, literally. And so I know what you're talking about here in terms of the danger. We've had multiple very close situations, during the war, around 6 months ago. People can see this report. We were filming in around the Nabatea region, and an Israeli drone fired 2 missiles right beside us. We were very lucky One of those missiles was white phosphorus, but the wind blew the other side. So the hand of God intervened, and they fired a fragmenting missile, sharpnail missile right after, because they saw that the white phosphorus didn't hit us. And again, the hand of God intervened, and there was a half wall from cinder block that was separating us on the road from the side of the land, and that wall took all the sharpnel. So I understand, and I know that I was the enemy, and I'm still the enemy number one of the Zionists in Canada. I know that for 30 somewhat years, they would have loved to put me in jail. They tried many times in Canada to do so, destroy my careers, threaten my life in different ways, dox my home, dox my children. Those have happened. And, it's not, I still don't see any of this as unique. I want people to understand that if you truly want to stand for justice, not only about Palestine, you have to be willing to risk your life. And we look at what happened to Black liberation movement and media, and in Africa, in Latin America, in the Arabic world, in Asia. This is not a unique story. And anyone that is questing liberation has to know that the path of liberation or the path of truth-telling in journalism is a choice of life or death. And you're either going to die on this path, or you're going to survive and be the victor. There's no other choices. Otherwise, sit down and just enjoy the ride. You're not going to be part of the writing of the history.
Yeah. Doing good doesn't mean good follows, right? I mean, oftentimes people who do good are vilified for it. That's why it's called doing good. It's a cost. Speaking of that, and speaking of journalism, I have been, it is astonishing to me that after 2 years of watching Israel go on a genocidal rampage, that the media is still seemingly in the dark about what's happening. And what I mean by this is, as I was telling the audience before you got here, so it came out that the US and Hamas got a deal. US and Hamas got a deal. Now, I immediately say this is nonsense. When this came out, I said this is nonsense. Like the notion that you guys are running with this is baloney, considering everything that we know at this point. I said the deal doesn't even make sense. And you got the Trump administration, Witkoff specifically, rushing out to talk about this deal. I thought I had the article up, the thing up. But you get Witkoff streaming out to the cameras to talk about the deal that they apparently got. So according to the reporting, and this is reported through Reuters, hell, even RT is reporting it. It says Hamas has issued a press release confirming it reached an agreement on a general ceasefire framework with the U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff, the same Witkoff that negotiated the quote-unquote deal the first time around that Israel continuously violated, the same Witkoff that blamed that blamed Hamas when Israel pulled out the deal like last week, that same Witkoff. It says a permanent ceasefire, full withdrawal of Israeli forces from Gaza, immediate aid flow, appointment of professional committee to manage Gaza post-deal. And apparently Trump was supposed to be very engaged in it. I guess he wasn't supposed to be engaged the previous times. And as I keep pointing out, they're acting as if the U.S. is some mediator. The U.S. has given 80% of the genocide. They're giving all of the bombs to the genocide. They were just at the ICJ arguing that Israel has the right to starve 2 million people. So this notion that the U.S. is some kind of honest mediator is nonsense. I call BS on this immediately. All right, day passes, and we get this. Clarification. Hamas did agree to the ceasefire presented, but Witkoff changed it. I'm sorry, but Israel changed it. It says Witkoff and Hamas agreed to a ceasefire. Israel then announced it agreed to it also. When Hamas got the final draft document, they found that Israel had effectively rewrote the agreement. They made alterations to it, putting in poison pills to the agreement. Now, the reason I call BS on it is because Israel's stated objective was to eliminate the Palestinian population and not allow them to come back. Donald Trump's stated objective was to ethnically cleanse the area. And so if both of these parties are agreeing that the entire objective is to get rid of the population, then how could they come to an agreement that the Israeli military is leaving? It just didn't make sense. Give me a take on this. I mean, how do they get this so wrong? And I can't believe there's coordination across all of media where they are this in the dark. Or are they really this in the dark on it?
Well, I would kind of encourage people not to follow drop site. Jeremy Sakehill and was
Scale.
part of the Scahill, whatever his name is, was part of the Intercept crew that were taking money from the eBay billionaire magnate, and were a part of the cover-up for the WikiLeaks files that were just disappeared after given to them. So I think we need to not always recycle the same people that screwed us over as movements before, just because they create new sites and suddenly pretend to be fully on side against imperialism and genocide. So that's my first point. Second is that obviously there will be no ceasefire. Let's be very clear. Hamas, outed this plot that just happened. The United States is not interested in a ceasefire, neither is Israel. They're trying to just extend the killing period that is for, the culling, the genocide, the Holocaust, those camps that we just saw, the videos of supposedly giving aid looked exactly like Auschwitz or something like this, So I saw an image today of one of these American mercenaries carrying an American flag on top of and in front of a lineup of starving Palestinians. So it's again, and the CIA, former CIA member that ran this new company resigned because he thought it was too much of a genocidal tool. Can you imagine?
Think of that, right? Got from CIA is like, this is too far.
This is too far, man. This is too far, and he walked out. So it's clear to me what is happening. This is all, again, part of the theatrics of, giving all this media. As we saw, all these media outlets got consumed by this fake story. And it's now been 48 hours of it running there while the genocide continues. And in such cases as these camps, it's actually becoming permanently structured directly on the ground beyond just bombardment from the air. So we have now institutionalization of the genocide being implemented on the ground structurally, as this media cover is being given to them by the mass media in the West that are part and parcel of the implementation of this genocide.
Yeah, and this is one of the cases of an American contractor. Apparently, the guy gets like $30,000 a month. I mean, extraordinarily well paid. And my thing was like, who's paying this guy? Like, they got rid of the aid organizations. They put in goons like this. They have these people in camps. There are apparently multiple camps all throughout the region. Trump and Netanyahu, whatever people want to believe, are perfectly on the same page for this. This is not like, oh my God, Netanyahu's taking advantage of Trump. It's not that. They have said as much that they're on the same page. So what is the ultimate solution here? I mean, are they really going to find somewhere to take this population. I mean, some people make the argument that the Palestinians aren't going anywhere. Like the idea that you're going to evacuate 2 million people, it's not going to happen. By the same token, they have done everything in their power to set up, let's say, the means by which to either kill, starve, or evacuate, expel, ethnically cleanse all of those people at the Gaza Strip. What do you think is happening with this ultimately?
Well, I mean, I've been saying this since the beginning of Al-Aqsa flood to specifically people who support the resistance before I even talking to the masses. A decolonization struggle is a very humanly costly struggle. There is no decolonization struggle that did not require the sacrifice of at least 2 million people. Okay. When we're talking about the decolonization of Vietnam, that was 6 million Vietnamese, Laotians, and Cambodians that had to perish in order to defeat the Zionist, the imperialist, which is the Zionist forces of the United States and France. Similarly, in Algeria, it was 2 million just in the last years of the struggle, 6 million overall, of the colonial era to kick the French out. So we cannot expect that Palestine, which is the most crucial and valuable land in the world in terms of its position geographically, to liberate Palestine, to do that and not have to pay the price of 2 million Lebanese, Palestinians, Syrians, Yemenis, Iraqis, whatever, at least, if not 6 million. Okay, the United States will not, and with it all the West, leave without a price of that worth. Okay, and so everybody needed to buckle down on October 7th, 2023, and not get hyped into thinking that things are going to end easily. We're talking about the whole combined might of the West, and the West openly told us, the empire told us over and over since October 7th, that this Zionist colony and its survival is the crucial thing to maintain the imperial hegemony of the West. They told us over and over. That Israel is fighting on behalf of all of them. That if Israel falls, all of their ability to dominate the rest of humanity ceases to exist. That's what our enemy told us. And yes, we have to believe them. That is the truth. So we will see in the next months, of course, more and more of the Palestinians in Gaza dying. And we will see, actually, as we saw over the last week with this Elias Rodriguez attack on Israeli propagandist embassy workers, we will see the actually militarization of struggle and militancy of the struggle to support the end of the genocide in the West. We will see what just happened with Elias Rodriguez happening in Toronto, happening in London, happening in Paris. And this war, as we are seeing it, is going to affect not only with these actions of militancy that will happen. I'm not asking for this to happen.
Right.
I'm telling you this is going to happen. I already told people that it's going to happen 6 months ago, when it was clear after the mass bombardment of Lebanon and the assassination of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, that now the Palestinians are going to mainly face it by themselves, the Zionists, that we will see these militant actions take place in the West. So now it's going to expand as more and more the genocide accelerates, and as there's no more cover for the elite to justify this genocide, as they had for the last year and a half. I mean, the failure now of the propaganda machine of the West of justification of the genocide is going to accelerate militancy of action on the streets of the West, because the elite are refusing to end the genocide. Okay.
Right. Yeah, when you lose Pierce Morgan, you lose everybody. I mean, Pierce Morgan has been a defender of this genocide for the last 2 years. And even he has been like, okay, this seems excessive. Going after the other person. And, to back up your point, when you see day after day, children being burned alive, children being shot and killed, when you see kids being used as human shields, when you see people being raped in jails, when you see hospitals being destroyed, your conscience gets involved. And whether the action is right or wrong, it becomes somewhat of an obvious human nature thing that people get more aggressive the longer it goes on in their pushback. As you pointed out, you're not calling for it, you're not advocating for it, you're pointing out that this is just how people act when things like this take place. I am curious, though, why do you think Europe 2 minutes ago has all of a sudden saying, hey, this looks bad. We don't like that you're starving people, even though you've been starving them for the last 8, 9 months. Why do you think they're Johnny come latelys to this now? I mean, if they didn't care about it 6 months ago, 3 months ago, why all of a sudden now?
Well, there's two reasons. One is that Europe mainly is still ruled by the liberal wing of the empire that still wants to play this propaganda of human rights and international law that the United States and the conservatives arm side of the empire have ejected. Okay. And we see how Trump is standing by with the king of Saudi and Netanyahu. So that's the conservative side of the empire that is done with theatrics and just wants to project force and get their enemies to back down through force, not through propaganda. So that's one thing. The other is that Europe hosts a much larger Arabic and Muslim population, percentage-wise, all these European countries, in comparison to the United States. The United States had an undeclared quota on immigration from Arabic and Muslim countries for over 100 years. In comparison, Canada or the rest of Europe in general has huge Arabic and Muslim population. France itself has 30% people from the Maghreb and Africa, right? So it's a huge population. And if we saw how the continuation of this genocide and the outright non-stop snuff videos that we watch have affected a Christian Latino guy in DC or in the United States to take that action. And over the last 20 months, the Arabic and Muslim population in Europe has been beaten up and down the streets, just like the students were beaten in the United States. But again, it's a much larger population. So just by statistically talking, there's a higher percentage, statistically, possibility that there will be more militancy in the movement against genocide in Europe than it is in the United States. That's just statistics. And I think they're all in this moment of total freakout. What's going to happen if there is, at some point, not only militancy, but race riots? That's another thing. The United States worries when the Black community is at the edge of having race riots. France is scared when the Algerians and the Arabs and their brothers and sisters that are intermarried to them, that are from Western Africa, start wanting to riot. We remember the last riots in Paris, what happened, weeks across France, they couldn't control it. Now imagine if it gets militant, actually not only physical confrontation, but arms involved in the situation. I think Europe is at the edge of that. Again, not calling for it, but this is the natural path of development of the situation. And as long as the European elite, the voices within the European media are even more conservative, let's say, than these voices coming out from the president of France or whatever about ending the starvation, there is a very big likely that this will get out of hand control.